might have been underrepresented by no fault of anyone's, I'm sure. But what are some things you were what's missing, and what do you know is missing, and why?
Yeah, this is a great question because one of the things that we really emphasize both in the book and when we talk about it is diversity. As much as possible. We know that Asian America is a nation of its own. It's got as much diversity within it in many ways as America has around it. And as a result, having a fully representative book speaking for Asian America is almost impossible. I've learned that the hard way through other projects. And the reality is, this is not speaking for Asian America, it's speaking about it. We tried to be as inclusive as possible, in part by actually using a very kind of unique process. We didn't simply just go after professionals or high-profile creators. We actually threw open, kind of an open audition. Anybody who had ideas for stories, ideas for heroes, ideas for, for concepts, publicly, we invited to submit. And once we actually got the ideas, before the ideas were actually turned into scripts, we actually contacted people who we thought had ideas that could work. Again, trying to be as diverse as possible. And over the course of actually 2 years, collaborated with them to really grow the story. We assigned them artists, so they didn't come in, many of them, with artist teams. We actually found artists that wanted to work with them based on their ideas. We went through many revisions and ultimately came out with stories from I think, first-time creators that stand on equal footing with the stuff submitted by professionals. At the same time, I think some of the things we aren't seeing enough of. We have a section about immigration, but and that sort of looks at kind of the disparities between American-born Asians and Asians from abroad. But I think that we could have had more voices from that perspective. We wanted more Southeast Asians. A couple people who were going to work with us dropped out. I'm not going to name names. But there are some really incredibly talented Southeast Asian creators in the comics world, and some of them, did their best to work with us and couldn't fit into the sketches.
And I think ultimately, we didn't have a quota, of we need such and such many Korean Americans, we need such many Indian Americans. Our number one criterion was that ultimately they had to be good stories, right? So that's rule number one, that every story in the book can stand on its own and can be written on its own and can be, a good story. And that was the number one criteria. I think, just my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. We actually, and maybe there's something, Anne, you're going to ask us about, but there are people who actually, when we first announced the idea of the book, were critical of the idea,
Well, I was going to actually ask, one of my questions is definitely, how do you deal with the inevitable criticism that you're trying to combat bias and essentialism, but are creating a book that defines Asian Americans in a way and brings up, relevant themes, filial piety. There's a lot of spiritualism in one of the pieces with the John Henry backstory. I can't remember the title right now.
I think one answer to that, the thing that I always think whenever I hear that kind of question is that, I don't care about role models. I don't care about role models at all, because if you set out to tell a story with a role model, you end up telling a boring story that nobody wants to see. Interesting characters are flawed characters. People are heroes not because they always do the right thing, because they have to struggle to do the right thing, or because they have. It's those inner conflicts, and it's the overcoming, not the just being, that makes you a hero. I think that's what's made Marvel great over the years. That's the classic Marvel formula. That every Marvel hero has some kind of struggle. It's almost a cliche. It's a beautiful cliche, like Peter Parker, the neurotic superhero. But it works because it's true. And so I think the glory of the book, or the glory of this kind of project, is that it's so many different voices. No one of these characters is the Asian American superhero or is the Asian American story. It always reminds me of, when Spike Lee was coming out, making his first movies, every time he made a movie, it was like, this movie's an outrage because it doesn't represent the totality of the African American experience. I remember people were all complaining because he didn't show, a crackhead and do the right thing. Why is there no drug? Why isn't Spike Lee dealing with drug addiction in the African American community? It's an outrage. And then later on, when in Jungle Fever, when Sam Jackson played the crackhead, it's like, why does he have to push? Why is Spike Lee always pushing drug addicts on us? That was Spike Lee. Why isn't he representing everything that African American people should be? And it's the same thing with these kinds of stories. No one of these stories is going to answer. And any story that tries to do that is doomed to begin with. I think there is no Asian American experience. There are 15 million Asian American experiences. You know what I'm saying? Like there are as many Asian American experiences as there are Asian Americans walking this planet.